Today I'm here at the Civil War battlefield of Chickamauga, and I'm about to learn more about this battle through a ranger guided tour. That's coming up next.
Sense of direction here. Back, of course, the way we came here is north, south, east, and west. And this battle, as we talk about today, you'll kind of get a sense that it starts over here in the east and it flows to the west during these 3 days. So in this direction here, about 3.5 miles is Reed's Bridge. If we went on down this road right here, it'd take you down here to Alexander's Bridge. That was where, of course, Reed's Bridge, that's where Forrest is fighting his Confederate cavalry is fighting against Minnie's U.S. cavalry. Down here at Reed's Bridge, that's where Wilder and his Lightning Brigade is, trying to hold the bridge, and with him, helping him, is his chief artillerist, our famous drug dealer here on the battlefield. Everybody kind of looks like this when I say that, but anybody know who that drug dealer is I'm talking about? You ever heard of a fellow called by the name of Eli Lilly?
Oh yeah.
He's probably touched our lives today. A lot of us that take medicine every morning. Eli Lilly is probably the manufacturer of a lot of that. So they are trying to hold that bridge, and plus you've got 2 more fords down here, that Dalton and Thetford's, that the Confederates are crossing. Eventually that day, that afternoon, the 18th, both of these bridges will be lost by the Union troops, and during that night now, all those Confederates start pouring across here. So everybody's kind of jockeying for position. That's pretty much it on the 18th. Now the 19th here at Chickamauga, we'll talk about a couple sections of it today, but the 19th here at Chickamauga basically can be described in 2 words: bloodbath. It is, a lot of historians will tell you that if you could actually pull out the numbers of the 19th here at Chickamauga, they're 99.9% sure that it actually surpassed that a 1-day total of Antietam of 23,000. But it is a fight all day long, a seesaw action, back and forth to Lafayette Road. If you look out there once in a while, you might be able to see a car. It's the road that we just turned off of out here. But what Bragg is actually trying to do is block that road. That is the main thoroughfare going to Chattanooga. So he's trying to keep these Federals from reaching Chattanooga. So he's going to try to block this road up here, and he concentrates a lot up here on the 19th here where we're standing. So at the end of that day, basically what will happen is both sides, both generals will have a council of war. Rosecrans, he will have his council of war at the Widow Glenn's house, which is tour stop 6 on your brochure there today. So he has all his top brass there with him. They're going over the day's activities, and they all come to consensus that is actually what Bragg is trying to do, keep them from heading towards Chattanooga. So they're figuring that the next morning he will start this battle again right here where we're standing here on the north end. Now bear in mind that this battle rolls to the south for about another 4.5 miles. So Bragg now, on the other hand, that night, he's over here in the woods, and he doesn't have everybody with him that needs to be there. Actually, we were talking about Longstreet a while ago. Longstreet has not got here to the battlefield yet. A lot of his men have now, but he's not here. And what Bragg is going to do is split his army down the middle, and he will give the Confederate left to James Longstreet. That should throw up a flag right there. They have been fighting this bloody mess all day long, and one of his main generals now that he's going to give half of his army to is not here yet. There's probably been some kind of communications maybe going back and forth by telegraph as he's moving. I don't know that for sure. The other half, though, the right half of this Confederate army will be given to Leonidas Polk. Now, that night at that meeting, what Bragg will do is tell D.H. Hill to go find Polk and tell him, you 2 guys are going to start this battle in the morning at first light, right here where we're standing. Well, there again, D.H. Hill's one of those guys that him and Bragg's personality do not coincide with each other, we'll just say that. got a real bad attitude. He will go out and try to find Polk, cannot find him, and doesn't really make no extra effort to find him. So, guess what happens the next morning at first light?
Nothing.
Bragg is sitting here waiting to hear the sound of the guns start. They don't start. So he sends somebody out to go find Polk, see what's the problem. They said they find Polk back here. Him and his men, they're eating breakfast. Actually, he was sitting there reading the newspaper. They said, well, it's not his fault because he had not got the communication from the night before. But there again, now think about kind of in Hill's defense. How hard would it be to find somebody out here in these woods where the fighting's been going on all day? Smoke-filled atmosphere here, and we'll talk about that a little bit here in just a minute. So it'd be very hard to find anybody. You don't have a walkie-talkie or a cell phone to call, hey, where you at? You're just basically going to have to find each other in the dark, too. So at 9:30, though, the fight will start. But in that 3 hours, as they're back here eating breakfast, they're eating breakfast through the sound of music being played right here where we're standing, and about 4 miles down through here. That music's not being played on musical instruments. It's being played on axes, chopping wood. What's happening?
Federal.
Right here. This man right here is giving us an example. What they're doing here along this 4 mile front here is they're actually building breastworks, if that's what you want to call them. Most of them will tell you that, well, I call them knee works, but it was just high enough that those men could lay down on their bellies there, stick the rifle over, kind of keep their head down, and be able to fire those guns. So come 9:30, guess who's ready to fight? These guys right here. So, anybody got any questions right now? All right. So, what about the atmosphere here that they're fighting in? Like I say, 80+% of this fight here at Chickamauga is going to be in the woods, and that's going to be something that these men are not really used to doing, fighting in the woods. It's kind of what they're used to is fighting like you see on TV, across these fields, lined up, coming across, and all that. So if you think about this, you see what here, this is, of course, descendants of those trees that were here. Of course, minus the chestnut trees, they're extinct now, but what you got to remember is the only people that had lived here prior to these families that moved in here from Virginia and all these other places to farm, the only other people before them were who?
Native Americans?
Native Americans, Cherokee Indians. So this is big, huge timber. This is virgin timber that never had been molested by man before. And with that, it's just like, probably maybe even a little thicker now, is this canopy of leaves. During this battle, the 3 days of battle here, it was estimated there were 5 million rounds fired out of these rifles, along with 11,000 artillery rounds. So you tell me now, besides death and fire now, you remember fire is going to be very easily made here because it hadn't rained about 8 weeks prior to this. So besides death and fire, what do those guns produce a lot of? Smoke. And what?
Smoke.
And
Noise.
Exactly. That smoke gets caught up under this canopy here. It cannot rise. It is so smoky. These men say they cannot, they can't see each other 20 yards apart. They're firing at each other 20 yards apart, and what they're actually firing at is just a flash of light coming out of the end of the barrel that's being fired at them. If you don't think it's smoky, right here is the Union line we're standing on here today, that morning of September the 20th. Right there, that line right there, that's the Confederate line. Yes, sir.
Sorry, should I ask before, but you mentioned that the line went down 4.5 miles. Was this the end of the line here?
This is pretty much the northern end. It's going to curl back across the road and go across the road. So, the noise also. Has anybody ever read anything from Sam Watkins? If you've never read a book on the Civil War, I strongly suggest get Company H. Sam Watkins is with the 1st Tennessee, and he is right here on this battlefield. In fact, you see the monument over there, it's got the gray acorn on top? Just the other side of that is one of these iron tablets. That's Manning's Brigade. That is who Watkins is with. And in his book, he'll tell us what he has seen, prior, or actually from the time that he crossed the creek over here 3 miles up until he gets to this point here. He said that and what I'm getting at is it was so loud, he'll actually describe it as the escape valve from 10,000 steam engines. If you don't know what that is, basically it's just one of these old steam whistles. And just imagine 10,000 of those. I told the lady here not long ago, she never had heard one out. So just imagine then going up here to level field and standing behind a Lear jet in that full throttle. That's kind of what it would sound like. So now, Sam Watkins, and I'm going to kind of get off subject here, but this is just, I really think, really cool. There's a gentleman that I found here recently that I do a little program on living histories. His name is Andrew Weaver. Now, Andrew, in 1863, the volunteering had just kind of diminished because everybody had found out that, if these 5 right here, these 2 guys here and these 3 here, if they all went into this war, went and volunteered, only this guy here is going to be the one coming out. This guy next to him, he's going to be killed outright on the battlefield, and these 3 here are going to die from disease. So that word had got out, and the volunteering has stopped. So in 1863, what has to start happening? Conscription, drafting. Andrew Weaver you can look at all his, get on phone 3, you can pull all his paperwork up. September the 1st of 1863, he gets drafted. Guess where Andrew Weaver's at 18 days later?
Here.
Right here.
18 days.
18 days. Now,
Wow.
that is having to learn very, very quickly.
That'd be a quick study, right?
And talking about, this is, again, he's got to travel from Saltville, Virginia down here too, so that's not even going to be 18 days to learn how to be a soldier. But take that, think about Andrew, and think about what Sam Watkins says. During that 3-mile track there, he says that he come up on scenes that was just ungodly. He said he saw men sitting at the base of trees with their entrails laying beside them, and they were crying for water. He saw men with their eyes shot out, their jaws shot off. He said they were shot in every conceivable manner, from the crowns of their head, he said, to the tips of their toes. And all this smoke and all this noise, and here we are now going to set Andrew down in the middle of this thing. He's coming up on scenes like this. I guarantee you that old boy never thought he'd see anything like this. I guess all these men never thought they'd see anything like this. But to be thrown into the lion's mouth that quick, probably 19 days earlier, he was standing there behind the old mule plowing the garden. And then September the 1st, he gets that letter in the mail that says, greetings.
Is that how they were enlisted, by letter?
I don't know.
Okay.
That's how everybody was in Vietnam. You got a letter in the mail saying greetings. I always say that wasn't from Uncle Sam, that was from Uncle Jeff. So I don't know exactly the process of that, but
Okay.
that's going to be the gist of it anyway. He's going to find himself in the Confederate Army September the 1st and be here alongside the River of Death 18 days later. So just think about that atmosphere as we travel around here today. But, you look here today at the property itself, and you'll see a couple signs. One of them is actually leaning against a tree down there that says landscape restoration. What we've done, now this is several years old, but they came in here with one of those little bobcat things with those grinders on front and basically took out all the undergrowth. Trying to emulate what we think it would have looked like in 1863. And part of that is because of the farm animals themselves. We'll see one farm today with that split rail worm fence around it. Back then, you put a fence around your place. Well, let's back up. Today, we put a fence around our place to keep, if we got livestock or whatever, we put a fence up to keep them what? In. Back then, you kept them out. Because inside that fence was your livelihood, your garden that you was going to grow all summer and then put up, live on it during the summer and put some of it up to survive the winter. So what you would do with your animals, you would brand them and then you turn them loose. And they'd roam around here in the forest and some of the fields that were fenced in. And they would actually eat just up as high as they could. So now you've got the soldiers talking about here at Chickamauga, there was places just like you see here, that you can see 150 and 200 yards up 100. And again, there were places here at Chickamauga that were so thick that they could not crawl through. So that kind of gives you an idea of what it looked like. Now, as far as what you're seeing today here, I don't know if you know this, if you read it up there in the visitor center or not, but you're standing in the nation's very first national military park. This thing is established in 1890. And you see all these monuments. We always get these people coming in mad because they don't see many of the Confederate monuments. And they want to know why. Did the Park Service plan it that way? Park Service wasn't even established in 1890. What happened here was, and it's a beautiful thing if you just think about it, even though what happened here was very ugly. These guys that fought here, they are the guys that come up with the idea to make a park. They took this idea before Congress, and I tell people this will be something we'll never see in our lifetime, nor will our great-great-great-great-grandchildren ever see. They took this idea before Congress, and it took Congress 15 minutes to say, that's a good idea, we're going to pass that. So they set this property aside, and those guys that came here and fought, they are the guys that come here also and place these monuments. They're the ones that come out here on this battlefield, like these guys in the 15th Infantry here, they'll say, we were right here, put that monument here. It's not made by how you would think it would happen today. Somebody sitting up in Washington, having the official records in their hands and a map and saying, I'm reading this, and so they had to be right here somewhere. Didn't happen that way. Those guys came here and done that. But now, this is kind of misconceiving along Battleline Road here now, because this is the time too, cars hadn't been invented very long. Also, you didn't have this road here. This road right here is not a wartime road. This is a road made to show you the battle line. So you got all these guys. Each one of these things here represent thousands of men. If it's a company, hundreds of men. But look at these things, how beautiful they are. And during the battle itself, you might have had the 15 up front here, you might have had the 18th behind them, you might have had the 16th back behind them. But they're so pretty. You got this road here. Who wants their monument back there in the woods? So we'll move them all up here to the front where people can see mostly. And but you can still say that these guys their footsteps were here on this spot. So, and you will see the acorn. I say acorn around here. People always want to know what that is. That is the 14th Corps' core symbol. If actually the 14th Corps did not have that symbol as they were fighting here, they didn't have one at all. The story is behind it that this was one of the sore spots of George Thomas's. That's every corps needs a symbol. And after the battle, he was actually talking to a gentleman by the name of Butterfield, and this conversation came up. And of course, this is where Thomas got the name the Rock of Chickamauga. That was mentioned. And Butterfield said, not only that, sir, not only did you stand there solid as a rock, he said, you also stood there as mighty as an oak. Thus the acorn became the 14th Corps symbol. Any questions or comments?
It's hard to imagine that 25 years later, these guys came back and they could recognize.
Yep, it is. And I'm sure that it has changed, it had changed some. But I still say too that what they went through here, all that's seared in their mind. And we're gonna listen to one of those guys at the very end today of what they went through and how that was etched in their mind the rest of their days.
But how would this stretch as far as what's different from that stretch? As far as especially 25
it's just, well,
years later?
as the battle flows, they are going to know where, they came from this point over to this point. They're going to remember that. Any other questions or comments? The reason why I brought them out, and like I say, during all this smoke and confusion, the map, we're laying here just about like this right here, right now. And we're basically up here about where Barrett is on this map here. This is actually that Union line that morning of the 20th. Talking about all that confusion, everything going on, the smoke, the noise, and all that. If I took this map here and done it like this, What's the shape of that Union line? I thought that was pretty ironic.
Correct.
All right, so now we're going to move down here to the Brotherton cabin. We're going to talk a little bit about the break.